Is Juvila Kropaite. I'm a journalist, and we are going to talk about the dead planet versus green transition. Do we know the real price? Is the topic today. Since it is related to climate, I think every discussion has to start with some sort of a joke or an episode about climate. So in Lithuania this summer, it was really hot in the last weeks of summer, and then when autumn started, like on the 1st of September, it all of a sudden became cold. And it would be easy to say, you know, that we have 4 distinct seasons again. And what are we talking about? What is the climate crisis that everyone is talking about? But unfortunately, we've been hearing about global warming, biodiversity, extreme climate events for what feels like forever, and we have been experiencing that too. We have for some time been hearing that we are on the verge of a sustainability crisis already. At the same time, the focus of discussion is switching a little, because, not a little actually, we see an increase of energy prices, prices of our bills, and fuel prices as well. And with that, we ask, can we actually afford the green transition? Is dead planet versus empty wallets the only option that we have? So today we'll attempt to talk about the urgent actions we can take today, costs and investments, and how not to leave anyone behind. Before I introduce all the lovely panelists here, I just want to say that whenever you want to ask a question, or if you want to contribute by making a comment, you can do that. There will be a microphone running, and your voice and your input is very important to us. So do feel free to do it whenever you want. Climatologist at Vilnius University, who has been working on a wide range of climate issues with particular interest in the geopolitics of climate change and also adaptation measures, Professor Egidius Rimkus. Thank you for joining us. Yes, you can do the clapping. This will feel more festive. Managing Director at the EIDE cluster, the Norwegian Center of Expertise for Sustainable Process Industry, working for the transition towards a sustainable future, Ms. Helena Flatmark. Thank you. Also, it's interesting to note that Helena was in charge of a similar festival in Norway 2 weeks ago, in your hometown, you said, which is, tell us. You do use a microphone, please.
Arendal, in the southern part of Norway, has had several years now a festival like this. We had actually 400 debates about climate.
So in 2 days?
No, in a week.
400 debates about climate?
There were 1,700 seminars.
But was it
named a climate election? So really, there was a shift within parties, or within the election. The voters, they really voted for the parties who wanted to take action on the climate agenda. And I think that then led to, within the last 2 or 3 years, you had the rest of the parties following. So now the whole political situation is in a completely different situation as you saw just 3-4 years ago. So I think this is what really, in the broader picture, is what is important. And I think that Denmark, by being ambitious, by having taken steps at an early stage, where you had visions of wind turbines not being profitable, being built 50 years ago, 40 years ago, as pioneer projects, now they're really paying off. And everyone can see in the current situation, this is the cheap energy we have right now, whereas gas produced electricity is really expensive. So I think you have the political shift, and you also see that technology is following through now. So I think we are in a good position to take off, so to say.
But if you had to name some specific national examples that, you know, Denmark is doing, because if we talk about sustainability and ambitious goals for sustainability, environment and climate, there are these big abbreviations and, you know, Green Deal and all of these goals on EU level, but there are also national things. Would you then say that Denmark is the strongest in wind? Or what would you name as, what would you single out as what's the most successful currently and the trendiest as well?
I think what you mentioned about the wind turbines, the wind industry is really important. We have producers, we have developers, and we also have the planning in our local geography all over the country and offshore as well. And I think from even having met politicians here, or at least from the authorities here in Lithuania, that you're also well underway on this. But I think it does not make it alone. We have also, it's a broad spectrum of initiatives you have to take. For example, we have developed our biomethane production, so biogas. Within the last 10 years, we extended the use of biomethane in Denmark from making maybe 2-3% of our whole gas system to almost 30% right now. And by 2030, we plan to have 100% biomethane. So no natural gas or the like in our gas system. So we take from cows or whatever the waste and make biogas. And I think it's a way of diversifying and making CO2 neutral solutions. And another big thing I would also mention or highlight is the district heating. For the ones of you not knowing the district heating, it's a kind of technical, but I know that you have a lot of it here in Lithuania as well. Where you
What
have
is it?
it's the heating pipes you have in the ground, where you take the surplus heat from maybe industrial production or from generating power at electricity at power plants. You have surplus energy, surplus heat, and you can distribute it to households, private households. Maybe some of you have it. But
let's ask Egidius.
Yeah.
Has Lithuania done something like that, or is it about to? Microphone, please.
Yes, I think we have something like that. We use cogeneration of electric power generation together with heating, so it works.
Yes, please.
Just one thing to add, what is really good about this system is that you can take all kind of heat and put into the system. So when you start in the future to make power to X, hydrogen, you take the surplus heat and you put it into the system. So it's really efficient in that sense that you can use all kind of waste heat for this.
And in terms of biomethane, you were nodding your head when Bertil was talking about
I
that.
can't answer. I don't know about biomethane in Lithuania.
Okay.
Actually, we have something, but it's not a lot.
Helena, any examples on a national level in Norway that you would want to single out?
Yeah, I want to give an example which is very close to people wherever they are. It's electrical vehicles, because Norway was sort of a pilot country for introducing the electrical vehicles, and that we see that now that Elon Musk, you know, the owner of Tesla, he was in Norway this week and thanked Norway because we were the country where he could start off. So now I think, I'm not so good in numbers, but I think it's more than 75% of new sold vehicles in Norway are electrical, and it's been like that for quite a while. So that's important too, because Norway is not a big market, but we sort of went ahead so that the car makers can test, you know, in Norway. And now we're trying to get ahead of. Thanks to this, we know that there will be a lot of batteries, you know, soon. So we're ahead of that industry as well to collect the batteries and recycle batteries back to reuse, or also going back to metals, because Norway has a long tradition for metal production. That's sort of where we are good in oil and metals. I work with the metals, so that's something that we can actually deliver to the world, making, you know, things you need with less energy. That's sort of the Norwegian way.
Egidis, you wanted to add
about Lithuania, I think it's a very good example. Maybe from one side it's very good, and from another side it's quite bad, because it was supported boom of solar energy right now, maybe 2 years ago started, and Why it's good? Because 2 years ago I bought my share in solar power station. I don't know where it is, somewhere near Utena.
Not in your garden.
Not in my garden, of course. And right now I do not pay for electricity, nothing. It's for me. It's okay. Prices is up. Okay, it's euros per kilowatt. Maybe not. Probably will reach. I will pay nothing. But many poor people who didn't own such information or had money to buy something like that, they will pay €1 per kilowatt, for example. So I can say this. I think that it should be done for small communities. In small communities, in countryside, build electricity, sun power stations, and provide energy for poor population.
You're saying
Right.
people should not be doing this individually, but the government, the municipality, or whatever should do it for groups of
For me,
people.
everything is okay, but I don't think that it's okay for other part, maybe not so rich people.
Because climate justice is a big topic
Yes,
now,
yes,
and
so
it's not really
we-
fair, right?
Yeah, we will talk a little bit about climate justice, yes.
Let's see what Helena has to
Yeah,
say.
I just want to take the word when you talked about solar energy, because I have an example from, it's personal, but also into that issue, because we built a new house 3 years ago, and then we decided, me and my husband, to actually have solar power on the roof, and that was expensive, but we could afford it. And now it's really, really, really good money, because we sell the energy out to the grid, and we also get, because Norway is a rich country, we get the power grant. So it's really embarrassing. But I think the thing that has happened during these 3 years is that now it's actually getting more and more popular, to have solar panels. But I think it's a very good idea that you mentioned, that it shouldn't be up to individuals. It should be, municipalities or and that should be a really good example for governments and municipalities to go forward, because
But for now in Norway, it's individual. It's on individual basis as well, right?
But we get grants to do it now. We didn't get that 3 years ago, but now we get grants, and it's actually lucrative because the prices are so high. And the positive thing is that people actually now, they're interested in these matters. They weren't before because the power was so cheap. So that's why I'm positive, because you have to get a lot of people to do this to get the prices down, and then it will be more affordable for more people. So it's sort of first movers can be more wealthy, and then more people can go into the new technology.
But problem is that I got support from government.
Is it a problem?
Yes, I got support, and of course I got support from the government. It was approximately 1/3 of my full price, and right now there is no. I guess there is no possibilities in Lithuania to do the same at this moment, because it's became very popular right now, and there is no money from governmental side to support everybody who wants to do it. So.
How about Denmark? Do you have something like that as well? Solar panels, individual shares that people can buy wherever, and are they becoming as popular?
We had these kind of support schemes, I think maybe 10 years ago, quite popular as well. But my personal opinion is, and that's the reason why they stopped as well, that it was not as efficient as thinking large scale. So what happened was we started thinking large scale. Fields now are filled with solar panels. You may discuss whether it's beautiful or not, but if you grow trees around them, maybe it's okay.
I remember people were also discussing about, windmills in the beginning. They destroy landscapes of communities, but now I think it's like one of the most beautiful things that you can see.
Some people find them, like very fine art, maybe, or something which is in the sculptures in the landscape. It depends. You may have different opinions, but still, what we experienced in Denmark was that you might have neighbor complaints. We have this effect as well when we put up new renewable energy, which is called "not in my backyard" effect, the NIMBY effect. It has an abbreviation as well, and it's something we work with. So when you make a new renewable project, you count what is the cost of not in my backyard. And then you sometimes you compensate people to have it in their backyard. But to avoid this, we move it often offshore. So that's why it's very popular to make offshore wind parks. You don't have to bother about neighbors and the noise, especially the noise, I think, for neighbors.
Helena, is that the complaint in Norway as well?
It's been crazy in Norway because we were. It was very a positive win for wind. Well, 5-6 years ago, and then it suddenly changed because people saw the big, new windmills. So it's been totally a non-issue for the last 2-3 years. But now we see that we really need the wind, so it's coming. But I think it's a really important issue to think new renewable, but also think it in a way that you don't use too much nature. That you can use all already. Industrial sites, think more like that, especially in a country like Norway, where we have planned all these windmills on top of mountains. We should, put them on industrial sites, and maybe solar panels along the road instead of, taking nature, because it's a dilemma, biodiversity versus renewable energy. So, and I think we have this discussion in Norway as well, that, we have the ocean wind that will be the solution for everything, but there will be issues in the ocean as well. You have birds, you have fishes, you have... So I don't think you can just, let the ocean take all the... Yeah, you understand. I think it's...
I want to dwell on the Elon Musk quote a little. You have mentioned it briefly. I have noted the full one. I want to thank the leaders and the people of Norway for their long-standing support. I do think we actually need more oil and gas for civilization to function, but simultaneously moving faster sustainable energy economy. Is that even compatible, do you think? Egidius.
Sorry. How to say? Of course, we still need. If we talk about gas and oil, we still need gas and oil because our production and our factories mostly goes on this type of fuel. Of course, there is a lot of globally. There is a lot of problems with renewable. Of course, we can produce small lecture, okay?
Okay,
Okay.
just a very brief one.
Okay, we can produce enough wind energy and enough solar energy in our latitudes. It's no problem, but actually we have two another global problems, because the first one is related with mineral resources which we need for renewables. It's quite complicated situation because there is different situation. For example, for solar panels we need silicon. Two sets of silicon goes from China. Okay, it's a leader in this. For wind energy, for example, for your company Vesta, okay, is the largest one in the world. For magnets we need, I'm not chemist, dysprosium in the neodymium, something like that. Okay, sorry, maybe I am not. And 85% of all rare elements, which is necessary for many our new technologies, are in China, Vietnam, Brazil, and Russia. 4 countries, 85%. Of course, there is some rare elements in Greenland, and due to climate change, it's possible to develop some mines. And actually, when we talk about, for example, cars, we need cobalt in Congo Democratic Republic, and 80%, 70% of the entire cobalt production goes from Congo, and 80% of Congo mines belongs to China. And only one element which is necessary right now, lithium, goes not from China, goes from Australia, but the largest reserves are in Chile. And China, I know that this year in January, China bought largest mines of new tenders for new mines developments in Chile. But I talk and for why we don't want to do the same job like China do. Because, for example, if we want to have rare elements, it's quite complicated. At first, it's very expensive process because from full mineral you should separate different elements. Another point, many minerals are radioactive because there is a little small amount of thorium in rare elements, so nobody wants in Europe to work with that. And third one, all landscape is destroyed, water is polluted, contaminated land, and so on. So it's quite complicated issue. It's one point. Another point, of course, related with renewables is that sometimes wind doesn't blow like last summer. I don't know about this one, but about last summer it was a big problem because there's no wind in Europe, and or sun cannot shine, for example, for a longer time. So we need more accumulators, and of course, it's success that in Lithuania we have hydro accumulation station, very big, and for energy saving. But actually, it is, I think, when we talk about renewables, two major problems. It's mineral resources, which are somewhere inside countries because we don't want to do nothing in our country because it's too destroying. And of course, our accumulators, energy saving. It's hydro accumulation, lithium batteries, or something like molten salt batteries, and so on. So it's nice idea, but it's quite difficult to implement right now. For example, and the problem is that China can. Price belongs on China right now. I'm not sure, but I think so.
Norway aims to be the most sustainable country in the world, but then also the production of oil and gas accounts for 20% of its economy. 250,000 Norwegian jobs depend on oil. So what would you say? Climate change solutions, Green Deal, and fossil fuels. Is that something compatible, or is that?
No, but I think it's a great dilemma, and it's been for quite a while in Norway because the oil is so lucrative. Now gas is also very lucrative, so it's all the money has gone that way, and also the brains have gone to the oil. When I was a student at our technical university, most of my student fellows went into oil, like we call it in Norway. I didn't because I didn't want to work in oil, but and that has also taken the capacity of doing other things. But now we're on the verge of doing other things like batteries. We try to do actually batteries without cobalt in Norway, so that's also part of it to make the sustainable value chain in batteries. But because of this, very lucrative oil business, it's difficult. So I think we need to have a plan, and that's a big discussion in Norway. There are political parties who want to not stop abruptly, but phasing it down. But of course now I truly believe that we should just give all the gas to Europe in this time we are now, because that's really important. So we should expand the gas and then try to not invest so much in oil, because we need the brains, we need the investment to other things. Like you told, all the minerals, we can do a lot of that in Norway, but we haven't done it because, well, it's gone all the other way.
You kind of gave us an international overview, but in Lithuania, Energy Ministry, for example, says that Lithuania could replace gas used for heating in Vilnius with mazutas, which I think the translation for that is fuel oil. That's following the European Commission recommendation to reduce its natural gas consumption in case there are shortages in winter. What does that tell us, in essence, you would say, that energy security is and will be always more important to us than climate? Or fuel oil. Would you maybe explain, mazutas?
Very thick oil, it's difficult. I don't know.
They use it for the big container ships. It's heavy oil, heavy fuel oil.
Okay. Of course, energy security is more important. There is, for majority of population, and I also think that, for example, if we want people to act when we talk about climate change, I know that many environmentalists don't like this word securitization, but actually we need to, from my point of view, we need to reframe climate change issue from environmental issue to security issue. When we start to talk about climate change like security issue, I don't talk about extreme events. It's not a threat for Lithuania. We don't think about that like a threat. For example, I suppose we have drought in August, and we had heat wave, several heat waves in August, and I think everybody from you are happy about it. So it's quite difficult to talk about. When I talk about security, I talk about other issues. For example, it's migration. It's security for it's problem for national security. The spread of different diseases. It's health security, and so on and so on. So I think that securitization is not so bad. It's when we talk about climate change like security issue, we can force more people to act. Instead, when we talk about we will have more droughts. Okay, it's nice. We will have more heat waves. Oh, fine. Our climate will be better.
Yeah, but the farmers would not like what you're saying.
Farmers. Our farmers always complain. There is no problems for them. Every year, something happens. With climate change or without climate change.
Denmark, do you think we are doing enough to make room for green energy solutions in general, knowing the current situation, which, we have not explicitly mentioned, but the situation is that the Russian invasion pushed global oil and gas prices, and they have been pushed higher. And people were saying, some people in the beginning, when Russia started the war, were saying, we have been talking about saving whales, and we have not noticed how, quite near us, there is a man or there is a regime that is killing people. And then, on the other hand, there were those people who have been saying that now, with resources less available because of export restriction from Russia, we can make more room for green solutions, and we can, push the green agenda faster. What do you think? Are we doing enough to push this green agenda faster?
I think it was Churchill saying never waste a good crisis, and I think we are in the same position now, that we should use this situation to make the best out of it. And I think it certainly shows that being fossil over the next 30, 40, 50 years is not a solution, especially since we are not all as independent fossil-wise as Norway, or maybe even Denmark. We also have some gas and oil production. But I think what is really important is that we now work together on a European level to integrate our grids, to make a new plan for how we integrate our systems, and it will be both electricity, electrifying our societies, inspired by Norway maybe when it comes to electric cars, but it can be other kinds of inspiration where we electrolyze our heating systems, more heat pumps. Heat pumps are really efficient, and you can get fivefold the energy out of it in terms of heating, in terms of what you put into this in electricity. So large-scale heat pumps, for example, 10, 20 megawatt heat pumps, install them and use it for district heating. You have the system here in Lithuania. Use biomass. You have plenty of forest and woods here. Start organizing and planning. That will be my very best recommendation, nationally and transnationally. So if we integrate our grids and even think longer term, starting to produce hydrogen, work together, support each other's heavy industry with hydrogen production, It may be steel industry, it may be fertilizing industry, it may be chemical industry. If we just have surplus energy production, and that's what we're working for right now. Let me give you one example. For example, in Denmark, we have now made what we, at least in our small country, regard as a kind of a moon NASA project, constructing energy islands in the sea. So in the Baltic Sea, we will make a huge energy island, so to say.
What is an energy island?
An energy island is you have a wind turbine park, a big offshore park, and you have the whole transformator system, the grid system. It takes a lot of grid and capacity to transform or to transfer the power onshore, and you make this on an artificial island. We have one plant in the North Sea, 80 kilometers offshore, so far away, no neighbors will complain, no not in my backyard effects. Maybe the fish will not be happy, I don't know, but you can do things for this. With rock reefs, things like this, you have a lot of experience actually already from offshore wind parks, improving the local environment for fish and other animals. But really, when you look at offshore wind production, often the problem is that you have the same areas being lucrative for the nature and for the offshore parks, because that's where you have the shallow water. The fish and birds like to be there. But in this case, we build an artificial island, 80 kilometers offshore. It's not really like a nature area, so we try to get it in a location where you do not harm the local ecological environment, and you are not having neighbor complaints, but you will produce in a large scale. The project we have is installing 10 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2040. 3 of them should be there already by 2033. And this will be enough. The 10 gigawatt will be able to produce power for 15 million households. It's really extremely big scale we are talking about. And if we have such kind of electricity production, we also have the surplus to be green. Also, when the wind is not blowing, we can accumulate by making hydrogen, and we can use it for fuel for airplanes and for maybe shipping. You asked before what the Nordic countries could do. The Nordic countries, Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, and Finland, we have agreed to establish a green corridor in the Baltic Sea, where we will try to green all the shipping routes in the Baltic Sea. We will cooperate on having the fuel capacity for green fuels, CO2 neutral fuels, made by hydrogen, or based on hydrogen at least. So you have these kind of visions, and I'm sure that the Baltic countries, Lithuania included, will be welcome in this alliance. So you have visions and you have ideas, and of course it's.
But we need more cooperation with you, is what you're saying, right?
We are happy to cooperate, but we're also aware that this may be expensive in the short run. You have to invest. And maybe you will not invest as much in coal and gas and other kinds of energy, but on the long term, I'm sure this will be the right thing to do.
Helena, you wanted to make a comment, but let's see. There are some people in the audience who are either clapping or raising their hands. That means they have something to say, and we are happy to listen. Thank you so much for following the discussion, and we are eager to hear your question. Right?
I just wanted to ask you about hydrogen. Maybe you mentioned it at the beginning of your talk, but I wasn't here at the very beginning. When you say production of hydrogen, what do you mean exactly? And what would it be used for?
Right now in Europe, you have a huge consumption of hydrogen, but all being made by burning gas, basically natural gas. I think even here in Lithuania, you have this big, huge fertilizing company. I don't remember the name of it, but it's huge consumption. And they, I guess, also would need hydrogen for their production of chemicals. But certainly in Germany as well, in the heavy industry, we're producing steel and chemicals, you need hydrogen. And usually this is CO2 based. But when you get into the next generation I'm talking about, then you would have wind turbines producing electricity, and with the traditional sort of experiment you might remember from school time from the physics, where you get a bang in the end of just before Christmas. Your physics teacher will have two electrolyzers producing hydrogen and oxygen out of water, and you can burn it, and it bangs.
And when you talked about shipping lanes, you mentioned hydrogen. You meant the ships use hydrogen as fuel?
No, not exactly. Hydrogen may be used for transportation on land, but what you do when it comes to shipping, you add some kind of carbon, maybe from a burning facility, and you harvest the CO2, which you don't want to be emitted into the air, and you can mix it with hydrogen under some circumstances, I don't know exactly, but you can make either methanol or ammoniac. I don't know in English how it's actually, is it ammoniac?
Ammoniac, I think.
Ammonia.
Yeah, okay. But those two could be fuels and for shipping. Ammoniac is a little bit more dangerous because it may be harmful, but under the right conditions you can use it as a fuel. You will waste energy each time you convert, but if you have district heating, you can put it into your heating system.
Thank you. Helena, you wanted to add something, but I interrupted you, so here's your
it's
chance.
a long time ago, but I was eager when you you talked about the climate issues is sort of related to security issues, that we see it together. I think it's a good way to see it, and I think the current situation has emerged that way of thinking, and that's, in a very bad situation, that's a positive thing, because we are eager now to see how we can be more independent of both China, Russia, and Europe staying together, like you're talking about. So I think that's so important, and I think also it's important to be more smart about how we use the different energy sources. Like we have a really, and I mean it's really stupid idea in a way, is to electrify the petroleum sector, which is absurd. But it's come up because Norway has to, we have our own targets. And one of the targets is to reduce the CO2 emissions from the petroleum production. And one way of doing that is to electrify the platforms, which I find a really bad way of using electricity. But because we have that system, that's sort of, it makes sense, sort of, but it isn't. It doesn't really make sense. So we should more think like, building platforms using hydropower, wind power, or something. So, but I think that should be more part of the plan, and I think that's coming now. How to use the different energy forms more wisely. Maybe closer to where it's used, like in the old days, when the industry was started up in Norway. The industry was close to the power plants because you didn't have all the expertise on how to transport energy. So I think that's maybe coming up now in the new ways of thinking, and that it should be.
Like it is, because need for collaboration was mentioned between the Nordics and the Baltics. Would you maybe note some good examples of that, or name areas where it's mostly missing?
Good question. Actually, I think there is a lot of collaboration between Nordic countries and Lithuania, and we have a lot. I can say from can't say from economical perspective, but from scientific point, I collaborate a lot with Bergen University. One joke, because I remember last time in June, I traveled from Bergen to Vilnius via Oslo airport, and in the last morning I realized that I should change airport in Oslo. It's 150 kilometers. And when it's no problem. I had time, but I went by train, and all system of trains in big Oslo area collapsed due to electricity failure. So, and after that, I stopped somewhere. I don't know where. I found my partners, and we went together with 4 Norwegians. We went from somewhere to Oslo airport by taxi, and I know what is the most important problem in Norway. It's oil prices. They talk. I didn't understand nothing almost, but they always show on fuel stations, and I thought, okay, €2.50. What's the price for Norwegians? In Lithuania, €2. It's a lot, but okay. But there is, I think, a lot of collaboration between our countries.
But thank God we never have electricity collapses in Lithuania.
Not now.
Okay, before we start wrapping this up, let's see if there are maybe questions in the audience, or maybe someone who would want to make a final comment or contribute in some other way. Yes, please. The guy in the second row. Say your name if you want to.
Let me to comment a little bit. I'm not a specialist in this area, but I'm following quite a lot on all environment issues. And when I hear, actually we all hear a lot of talks on global warming and etc., you know, but situation is getting worse and worse. It's not getting better globally, talking globally. And of course there is a lot of things which we can improve, but one thing which I'm missing in all of this is the problem with the way our world is set up in economic way. We are increasing our consuming. We are not talking about stopping consuming, slowing down economy. One of the good examples was pandemic crisis, you know, with coronavirus. We all did see very clearly how this simple virus reduced pollution over the planet. But look what happened. I didn't hear from non-country government talking, well, watch, this is a simple issue. Who did buy traveling less? Who did die traveling less? Who did die sitting a little bit more time spending with family? No one dying from this, you know. So why we don't change the way we live? This is a simple solution.
Okay, it's very important what you're saying, but I wouldn't agree that we are not talking about that circular economy, you know, all of the, you know, used clothing startups. I think it's on, you know, it's
okay, we are talking.
in public
I don't want to
discussions.
take too much time, but one of the big jokes, I don't know if you notice here, right here we have a museum of warming planet or something like this, you know. I was walking to this museum, which is about, you know, your topic right here.
Climate.
Climate, yes. And when I was walking through these containers, one from another,
You saw a plastic cup.
I didn't notice that there is huge diesel power generator feeding up electricity to these 4 containers. Diesel power generator was supplying electricity to these containers here. It's a shame. And we see such an examples everywhere. It's a shame.
Okay, it's good that you noted that. Thank you so much. Yes, these kind of paradoxes we meet, I think, a lot. You go to, you know, a conference, and then all of a sudden you get leaflets that people are discussing. Do we really need those leaflets in the day when, you know, we talk about climate or plastic cups or whatever? But maybe for the final note, would you maybe each of you mention an example like that doesn't make sense, so that if we hear it, maybe there's a greater chance that it is eliminated? And besides, an example of what kind of an action needs to be taken by everybody right now, because as the man said, and we mentioned in the beginning, the situation is not getting better, it is actually getting worse every year. Helena.
No, I think it was interesting, your commentary, because I was actually thinking about this before traveling here to Lithuania, because we had 2 years without traveling, and it's been good for ourselves maybe, and it's also been good for the planet. But still, it's very important that we actually meet and discuss. So I chose to go, even if it's a climate footprint for my travel. But I think it's important that we always think, when we do travel, and also think how we travel and how we spend, So I actually lost my luggage on the way, so I bought a new dress today, and it's a used dress.
Oh,
so
congratulations!
Yeah, and it's really nice, isn't it? So I think that's happening now, that we think more, and I think we should do that. And we should also think that when we have vacation. I had a summer vacation this year, only cycling in Netherlands. Wonderful vacation. So we should all think more, like you said. But we shouldn't get too pessimistic.
Thank you. Bertel?
I think I would. I don't like telling people how they should live their life, but I would like to say that I think you have to think about saving energy. So my advice would be: insulate your house, install district heating, or install a heat pump, and help society. Do that instead of buying your next holiday abroad.
And instead of the paradoxes that were mentioned in the audience and little examples like that, was there anything that you ever noticed in Denmark as well that would have been sent by people to the ministry or something, something that you felt you needed to fix as soon as possible?
I think what I mentioned would move much more. Also on the individual basis, if you do those kind of things.
Egidius, what about you? What kind of an advice you would give to people?
Avoid cars, avoid planes, avoid meat. I don't.
But these are boring. Give us something new.
Okay. I don't talk about vegetarians that you need to become vegetarian. I talk about small decisions which we make everyday life. For example, you can choose when I wake up. I think it's too rainy. I should go by car, of course. Maybe it's small decisions which we should do every day. It's very important. It doesn't mean that you need to throw out your car or do something like that. Also very important to change your consumer habits, because I usually we buy, I think half of what we buy we do not need. I don't talk about food, of course. And of course it's very important is to elect government who really care about this issue. And about myself, for example, I did some things in last 3 years, but 1 month ago I flew by plane to Alaska and back, and I offset all my efforts from last 3 years. So sorry for that.
And talking about that diesel-powered engine, did you go and tell anybody about it?
Yes, I asked the ladies who were standing.
Yeah, it was not their responsibility, but I think we can also be proactive in sharing examples, personal examples, telling when we think something is unfair, and I think just being proactive and caring about what's going to become next is very, very important. So I want to thank everybody, unless there is a short comment from the audience or their advice what to do so that our planet is not dead soon. Something that has not been mentioned. If there is anything, please raise your hands. If you don't, then I will kindly ask all of you to give a big round of applause to all of the panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope that once we leave this tent, the light goes down for good. Thank you so much.